Hey everybody, it's your girl epiphanytanya. I'm here once again with yet another video. But before we get started today, I think I might do a little story time. But before we get started with that, I need you to like, comment. Which way is it? Is it on this side or this side? Like, comment, subscribe, share this video. So I think I might do a little story time today, and I want to talk about a few things. So I think I'm gonna talk a little bit about, I don't know how much story I'm gonna put in here, but this is sometimes it's easier. It looks easier than what it actually is. And you see people have these wonderful YouTube channels and you just see them like doing all these videos and being so transparent. Sometimes transparency is not that easy. It can be difficult and hard. But one of the things I want to share with you before I get started with what I want to go into and talk about is talking to you about faith. I know that you might tune into this video. Maybe you have faith. Maybe you believe in God. Maybe you don't. I don't know what your relationship is, but I think it's so important that we have faith. For myself personally, yes, I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and I know I couldn't have made it as far as I have today without him. And so me and my husband are going through some stuff tonight. I'm actually recording this video and I have to record it because we're having some problems with our phone and our internet and the data and the hotspot and all this stuff is like going haywire. So I'm just recording the video and I'm looking forward to uploading it, when everything gets worked out. But there's an example right there. Like I had to just take the steps, even though stuff is not going the way I want it to go. I can have all kinds of reactions to it because it's not going as planned or it's not the way I want it to be, right? So I was talking to my husband about that and I was saying like our response and our reaction to when difficult times come is going to say a lot about us and our character, but it's also, I believe that God is looking at that. And so if we claim his name, if we say that we're Christian, we say that we believe in Jesus Christ, I think our response to things is very important. And that God will either honor that, how we respond, or, deal with us about it. And so I thought it was good to still just go ahead and do this video, even though you guys might not realize all that I'm going through right now as we speak. Excuse me, trying to do this video. I had started recording earlier. I was actually designing my t-shirt line and everything when the phone went completely kaput. And so, it kind of just put a little monkey wrench in it, in my plans of what I wanted to do. So I have a choice to make at that point. How am I going to respond? I can respond with frustration. I can respond with anger. I can respond with depression. I can respond with a lot of different things. I can respond with thank you, God, for every other blessing I have, right? I could respond with counting my blessings. I can respond with praise and worship to God. I can respond with gratitude and thankfulness. It's really up to me how I respond. And I truly believe that how we respond determines how we go through whatever storm, trial, or test, right? So I talk about this repeatedly in several of my books. The Road to Breakthrough is my latest book. And I definitely break it down in there, talking about the process and how your process is dependent on your response, right? It's almost like getting graded on the test, right? And if you have the right response, bam, you pass that test, you move on to the next class. But if your response is any of those other things I named, like temper tantrum, anger, frustration, you go break some stuff, you go burn some buildings down or something crazy like that, that's not the right response. God is looking for us, especially as Christians, God is looking for us to have a Christ-like response, right? And so I believe everything we go through, it's molding and shaping us to be more like Christ, right? It's giving you more opportunities to respond the way Jesus would. And it's not always easy. It's easier said than done. It's not always as, easy as maybe I'm saying or making it out to be. Sometimes it's really, really challenging and it's really, really hard to have that positive response in the face of unbelievable trials and situations and circumstances, but we have to press and we have to keep pushing towards that, even when we get off course and we see ourselves responding in negative ways, then it's important that we get back on course and get back on track. So that leads me into my story that I wanted to tell you about. So if you've been watching this channel a little bit, you know a little bit about me, just tad bits and pieces right now, because I haven't given you a full story range of my life, but I've given you snippets here and there. If you follow all the different videos I've started to post now since I had this walk away experience, where I just finally decided to step out of the shadows. I could actually probably give you that story because it's a longer story than than I don't know that we have time for. I like to do shorter videos right now, but you know, I guess I do have to kind of give you some backstory. So I talked about this in some other videos that I grew up in the hood. I grew up in a really rough neighborhood in Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia. I lived in an area called, it was like, you know, they really went by like the major street that was in your neighborhood. So they would say, oh, you're from, you know, if you were from, let's say Lehigh Avenue was a major street. Broad Street was the main street that runs through Philadelphia. Broad Street as well as Market Street, if I'm remembering correctly. Not unless they change any of the names, because I haven't lived there in probably about 7 or 8 years. But Broad Street and Market Street are the main two streets. So if you live on that side of town in North Philly, then Broad Street is the main street for you. Whereas though people that live in like West Philly, Southwest, Market Street might be considered a main street, right? So, you know, if you lived Lehigh, you would be like, oh, Broad and Lehigh, right? If you lived anywhere in that vicinity, then people be like, oh, I'm from Broad and Lehigh, or I'm from Lehigh Avenue, you know, whatever. They might give the cross street 12th and Lehigh, or whatever. I have family that lives over there for anybody that may be possibly watching this video from Philadelphia, who knows? And I know it's people from all around the world that watch YouTube. So I lived in this area called Allegheny Avenue, right? 15th and Allegheny, Broad and Allegheny, however you want to label it. And so I grew up there. Like I told you guys before, my mother, I say now, it's funny because a lot of times we can go through things and we don't have the language, right? I didn't have the language for a lot of the things I went through, but now I'm understanding more that because my mother was conditioned to believe, like many African American people, that Democrat were good and the Republicans were bad and the racist, right? So she kind of raised us that way, that Democrat was good, Republican bad. And so, you know, she was a big proponent, or I don't even know if I want to say proponent. She really didn't push that on us, but by us being raised on welfare, then that's the exposure that we had, was welfare, right? But she wasn't someone who promoted that. You know, she hated the lifestyle. She hated the poverty that we were in. She complained about it all the time. You know, it was a very unhappy time in my life growing up, right? Because of all the problems that she had. And I told you guys some of this in previous videos. So again, she pushed education, everything was education. I was the late bloomer. I was the one that rebelled, and I kind of ran out and tried to escape in like social settings and, you know, friends. I tried to like just run out with my friends when I got to be a certain age. You know, I started running away from home probably when I was like 11 years old. And so I started running away from home, and, you know, because she was drinking a lot. We were moving around a lot. We lived in and out of shelters and rooming homes, and we did all this stuff, and it was really, really bad when I was young. And so for a long time, I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger. I could tell you guys some stories. I got in a lot of trouble, and, you know, but like I said, it always rung in the back of my mind that she was for education. And I saw that she actually rejected me because my other sisters, they were like bookworms. And so she showed them love and favoritism because they were like bookworms. But because I was rebellious and I ran out in the streets and I ran out to be with my friends and I hung out and I started, you know, getting into some not so good things, smoking, drinking and stuff, and boys and everything else, she totally like shunned me, right? So at some point in time, I remembered this guilt and this shame that came over me because my other sisters had went to school and they had education, and she cherished them and kind of almost idolized them. And so it just made me like get tired of that feeling like, okay, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to feel like a failure, right? I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to feel like a failure. And so I guess shame does work sometimes, because she literally shamed me into further my education and doing more with my life, because I just felt like I knew I was the outcast. I was the black sheep of the family. And it just didn't feel good. I remember the turning point was one of my aunts. We were at her house. I had lost my sister, older sister of mine that was very close to, very devastating time. We were at my aunt's house, and my mother was talking to all her friends, as far as like my aunt, some of her friends, my mom's friends. Had all gathered for the time around the funeral. And so she was just bragging. They were all bragging on their children. Oh, this one went to school. This one went to college. And for some reason, I was there in the midst, but I was on the stairs while they were all sitting in the living room. So I can like see kind of through the little spoke things or whatever on the stairs. And I'm hearing the conversation. And so my mother is bragging on my sister, who has her, she's a registered nurse, and she had her bachelor's at that time in nursing from Penn State University. And she's bragging on her. And then I don't even know who else, because really at that time we were so young that my other sister, who went on to get the degree in engineering, she hadn't been to school yet, but I guess she had got accepted to a private school. She actually went to the same school as Kevin Hart. And by the way, so let's talk about Kevin Hart, that he bullied my sister. And so I really don't watch Kevin Hart like that, because, anyway, that's a whole nother story for another day. But he went to school with her and he bullied her every day. And my sister was like so depressed, almost suicidal, because Kevin Hart bullied her almost every day of her life. So anyway, that's another story. But she went to this private school for like people with money. I think she got a scholarship to go. So anyway, so my mother was there. She's bragging on her daughters that had the education. I just remember just feeling so bad. And I was just like, man, I just don't like this feeling that, she could sit there and brag about them, but she can't brag about me. So that kind of started this journey for me towards the education, but I still didn't take the steps yet. And I remember having this spiritual awakening where God himself had to push me into the realm of go back to school, because I had dropped out in the 10th grade. That's how bad it was. And so I went back to school, ended up getting my GED. I went from the GED. I wanted to go to this 4-year college of Temple University, but I did not, you have to take the SATs and all this stuff. But because I didn't they said, well, listen, because I went there and I was like, please let me into your school. I'm like literally begging these people to let me into their school. They said, listen, you can't get in without the SATs, but what we can do, we can tell you, go down the street to the community college. If you finish there and you do well, then you can transfer over here, right? That's what I did. I went to community college. I got an associate's degree in liberal arts, social science. And then as soon as I was done, because I was counting the time, those 2 years, it seemed like it kind of flew by. It was really a blessed experience. And God pretty much paid my whole way, because everything was grants. The whole community college was paid through grants. I didn't have to pay any of that money back. It got bad later, but that's another story. So I went through that, and then I transferred, went to Temple. I studied psychology. I got my bachelor's in psychology. I started breaking barriers. I started doing all the things that people said I would never do. They basically told me I would never, including my mother, I would never amount to anything. I was going to have a whole bunch of kids and be on welfare, and I would never make it in life, right? So that's kind of what I was working against. And so fast forward, I go to school. I go from the bachelor's in psychology, and I end up transferring and getting accepted into University of Penn, Ivy League school. And I get my degree there. I have to tell you that story one day about my experience at University of Penn, because that was kind of a nightmare, but that's another story for another day. I graduate, get a job, and I get a series of jobs, and I go into this counseling field, but it's so much stuff I don't know that I feel like they didn't prepare us for on the counseling side. Like, take for instance, you can have your master's in counseling, have your master's in mental health counseling, school counseling, or whatever, but there's still 2 more years that you need to do to get your license. You still need to go into the workforce and study under a licensed person, like an apprenticeship, I can't even get it out, apprenticeship for 2 years after you sit up here and spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on a master's degree, then you still have more studying and work to do. And nobody told me it was going to be that hard to get someone to take me under their wing and get my license. So here I am, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt in the hole, with this wonderful, beautiful master's degree. By the grace of God, God would always open the doors for me to get good jobs, even though I didn't have this license that they really wanted you to have. So there was a lot of doors that closed because you couldn't get just any job, but there were a lot of doors that opened for me that I probably shouldn't have even had. But I know that it was God's grace that he would open these doors that I really wasn't qualified for because I didn't have that license. So at some point in time, so I graduated 2011 with that master's degree. And I graduated 2011 with the master's degree. And at some point in time, I hit a snag in the road, probably like 5 years down the road, of me trying to maintain a master's level. They call it a master's level practitioner, right? Before you get your license, then you can get jobs on the master's level. They're very limited, and it's a lot of competition for those jobs because, I don't know why. I don't know why it's so limited, why it's so few. I guess because it's a liability with the state if you don't have a license and you're practicing under someone else. Also a liability for that person to take you under their wing on their license, because then they're kind of responsible for anything that goes wrong, right? And so I hit a snag somewhere around 2000, at the end of 2015. I hit a snag with this one particular supervisor. I had this really good job. In my mind, and some people might think $50,000 is not a lot of money, but for me, being grown up poor in the hood in poverty, this was like the highest paying job I had ever had. And I just thought I was living high on the hog. I had money to save and put up, and I could pay my bills, and it was like comfortable. Like I wasn't hurting, or I didn't feel like it was the struggle that I had been under for like most of my life. And then I hit a snag with this one particular supervisor that began to degrade me, this Indian man. And before he came along, I was doing really well. I had like 100% performance rating under the other supervisor. Before that, I had like this gay, flamboyant man supervisor. He didn't give me any problems. Like I learned how to appease him, and then he left me alone. He always his whole thing was he just wanted to look good. So as long as you did your job, he looked good, he was happy. But this other guy came in, he was on a power trip, and he began to degrade me, berate me. And so I still had a lot of trauma. I didn't realize it until I ran up against this snag, that I still had so much trauma from my childhood. And so I was triggered. I got really severely triggered by his verbal abuse. And it just reminded me of what I went through in childhood, because I had a lot of abuse. I didn't tell you guys about that part. A lot of abuse in my childhood. So anyway, I hit the snag, and I ended up losing that job. I actually went on like leave for a while because of, I started having really bad panic attacks and anxiety attacks. So I went on leave, and I'm not proud to say that I actually ended up homeless, right? I ended up homeless in the street and sleeping in the airport. And I would literally go and live in the airport. Like I just like put all my stuff in storage after I got evicted because I couldn't pay my rent. Put all my stuff in storage, and I just took like a suitcase, like a carry-on suitcase, like you're going on a trip on an airplane with the wheels, and I just would wheel that with me, and I would go and I would pretend like I was on a layover flight, and I would stay in the airport. And I literally, like, I had no family to turn to. And I would have to tell you more of the story. Like I said, if you go and get my second book, Misunderstood, that kind of gives you more of the backstory of why I didn't have family like that, right? Because I went through so much stuff with my family in childhood that relationship became so strained that there was no relationship after a while. So it was just me out there on my own trying to survive, right? I ended up leaving Philadelphia, and I moved to, I kind of bounced around. I was in California, then I went to Florida, Again, I could tell you so many different stories of different things I experienced along the way. So, and I try to cover it in Misunderstood and The Road to the Breakthrough. So I tell you this story to say that I've gone through some things in my life, a lot of things, some really, really bad, some really, really good, right? And when I was in those really low times, those really low places where things were really, really bleak, I never thought to like burn down a building. I never thought to like riot. I never thought to loot or steal, even though I was like, it was times where I didn't have food to eat. This is something that a lot of people don't know about me, right? Because if you look at me, I probably look pretty well put together. But I experienced that in my life. I experienced homelessness. I experienced job loss. You know, I can go on to tell you the different stories of jobs that I was in. I notice now, like I said, I didn't have the language back then. I notice now that these jobs in these places, they were Democrats. They were Democrats and they were liberals. And they were quick to fire me. They were quick to like get me evicted from a place. But I never thought to like retaliate by destroying anything. What I did was I prayed, and I fasted. I prayed. I mean, sometimes I didn't have any food. I had no other choice but to fast, but I prayed to God, and I believed God would turn the situation around for me because I knew I was a believer. I didn't understand why God was letting me go through so much stuff, but then I look at people in the Bible like Joseph, who got thrown in the pit and lived and went into a prison, and he was a righteous man. And then I look at people like Jacob, who was on the run from his brother and all that he went through. And then I look at David and I see his rejection that he went through when he was younger. And I look at all these people in the Bible and I'm like, why not me? Why not? Why wouldn't I go through these things? And so I went through all that, and I had to pray, and I had to have faith, and I had to believe in God to bring me out. I had to hold on. I had, and it was things I went through repeatedly, right? Because I would get a job and I'd try to get on my feet, and I'd be right there at the cusp about to get back on my feet. And then here comes something else and it's a blow and a knockdown, and then back in the situation again, right? And that kind of happened a few times. And I just had to pray. I had to have faith. I still today I have to pray, and I have to have faith that God is going to take care of me, and he's going to pay my bills, and he's going to help me get out of debt. Because like I said, that college I went to, it's really bad student loan debt right now, right? But again, I never thought to burn down anything. I never thought to loot, right? I thought, let me pray. Let me see God. Let me look at myself. What have I done wrong, right? What mistakes have I made in my life? What decisions did I make? What wrong turns did I take? I started to examine myself and like, how can I improve and fix myself and not make those same bad decisions anymore? How can I make better decisions in the future? So I say all that to say that I just really feel like this, whether it's BLM, Antifa, it's an excuse. It's an excuse that you're going to burn down things to get your way. There are so many different avenues you can take to affect change. And I was always that person. I wanted to affect change from the inside out. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna get educated, I'm gonna go into these jobs, and I'm gonna try to affect some type of small change from the inside out, working, being a good employee, doing these different things, talking to people, sharing ideas, conversations, helping change people's perceptions, right? It's all types of ways that you can affect change. But rioting, stealing, and looting, I had every excuse to do those things. When you're hungry on the street, why not steal something? I never once stole, because you know what? My relationship with God was such, I would not do that. So what I did is I prayed, and God made miracles happen for me while I was in that situation. He made it so I never went a day hungry that I can think of, not unless I was purposely fasting. He always provided food for me while I was living in that airport. Some kind of way I had my debit card, and if anybody knows, I'm just going to be real transparent with you guys and say, well, I don't know if I want to say what bank I use, but that might not be so smart. But let's just say the bank that I use, they don't let you spend over whatever's on your card, right? They're not letting you go overdraft. Times now that I may have, if I run out of money, and I go and try to swipe my card, it's getting declined. That whole time that I was living in the airport, and it was about a good 3 months, my card never was declined. I ate right out of the fast food places that were there in the airport, and it always charged my card. I ate probably Chick-fil-A every day. I ate out of Payway because they were in the airport. Fancy restaurants, I ate. And I just kept myself up. I would go to the bathroom, freshen up. I kept myself looking nice so nobody would know. Eventually I got caught and the cops trespassed me. But before that happened, God was providing. He did provide even after that, because that was a blessing. It's like, okay, you can't stay here. You can't make this your life, right? So it had to end at some point in time. The cops had to come eventually. You know, somebody snitched and dime me out. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was my own people, this African American man or whatever. I don't know what I did wrong to him. You know, sometimes guys get upset because you don't talk to them or give them the time of day. My focus is on where I'm gonna live and stay. I'm not thinking about trying to get with you and be your girlfriend or something like that. I'm going through this situation. I'm trying to think my way out of that. Some women might have thought to get with him so they could have a place to stay. That was another thing too. Because of my standards and my morals and my belief and my faith, I was not trying to live with a man, even though that's a whole nother situation. That it was a short period of time that I did, but I was so convicted, and stuff started happening with that, with the guy's girlfriend, that I just came out. I just left out of there and went back to the airport. But again, I'm saying all this to say that just because things are hard and rough for you, just because you have problems in your life, just because someone discriminates against you, because you have racism, I've faced it, I've gone through it. Like I said, I can tell you other stories of jobs, only African American person, and they fire me. And again, go back into that situation where now I'm living in my car, right? Because at least at this point in time, I had a car by then when they go and fire me, and I can live in my car. So I've gone through all kinds of racism and all kinds of discrimination. I never thought to let me steal, let me burn anything down, let me loot. So I feel like it's an excuse, and it's like having a temper tantrum. It's like I'm gonna force somebody to do what I want them to do, strong arm them, right? And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. That's why I put out the other video I did, that BLM is a new KKK, because it's terror. It's terror that you're inflicting on people. Instead of you having faith in God, which you can do, you can call out to Jesus' name and he will help you. You can have faith in God. You can work really hard. You can save money. You can invest in stock. Now God has given me so many avenues. He showed me how to do graphic design. I'm designing my own t-shirts. I have t-shirts on Teespring. I have Miss Sidewalk Rose, the online store. I have the Red Republic that just opened up. Go check it out on teespring.com. I'll put the links in the description. I've written books. I have 7 different books I wrote on top of the degrees I have. And so when I saw that I'm not fitting into their system, okay, come out of the system and become an entrepreneur then. If they're discriminating against you, if it's, racism, if we comply with the cops. I've had plenty of encounters with the police, some good, some less, not so positive, but each time I was always taught and raised to have respect, and I honored and respect them, even if they were being disrespectful. I'm not going to sit there and curse out a cop. I'm not going to disobey their orders. I'm not going to do all those things. And if we look within ourselves, right, we're blaming everybody else. Why can't we talk about us in the Black community and our errors and our mistakes and our mishaps, and the fatherlessness in the home, and the poverty and the welfare mindset where you're just passing down welfare through generation? Why can't we talk about that stuff? Why is it only focused on police brutality? Why can't we talk about the other issues that are present, that if we improve ourselves from within, then we would have more of a leg to stand on? I feel like we would have more of an argument against things like police brutality or whatever else issues that plague us from outside if we would deal with within. Why don't we want to talk about what's going on within? Why don't we want to talk about the issues that we have about, our disrespectful nature and the evil that's in the songs, and just the men disrespecting the women in the songs, and the promotion of the drug trade, but no, we want to blame and say, oh, well, we don't have no, what did Nino Brown say? We don't have no poppy feeders in the ghetto or whatever. It's like, okay, blame somebody else because you choose to sell drugs. Blame somebody else if you choose to do crime, and then the cops come, and then and it's an altercation there, and then God forbid it goes left. But why don't we want to talk about us as a people? So anyway, that's some of what I want to share on this video. I just feel like it's an excuse that for BLM, Antifa, and anybody else to burn down buildings, loot and riot, to say because you've been discriminated against, because you had racism come into your life. It's a lot of us that have that. We're not burning anything down. We're not looting and rioting. That's not the answer. That is not the answer. And that is an excuse that you're using to be lawless and to be a criminal and to get your way and to take over the country and all this other stuff that you want to do. I just don't believe it. I just don't, I just don't see it. I don't see. It's hard for people to get on the side of your cause when you're doing this other stuff, when you're burning down buildings and looting. How can we support that? It's you're losing your support, because when this whole thing started, I was on my page like BLM and Black Lives Matter and all this other stuff. But when I see what's happening and going on, I can't get behind that. I can't support and promote that. I can't support and promote crime. I can't support and promote. And it's wrong that you guys are asking anyone to. And it's like it's a gang mentality right now. It's like, oh, stop snitching, or, oh, do what we say, oh, do it our way. I saw a video the other day with y'all standing in the street blocking an elderly lady that was like in her 90s on a walker. How do you justify that? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna, you guys know I get too passionate about this stuff. I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna check out from this video. I thank you guys for watching and listening. I don't know what to say. I just keep praying. I just keep praying for the change to come. I know that no, police officers aren't perfect. There's some bad apples, just like there's good ones, just like you got good doctors and bad doctors, good lawyers and bad lawyers, good teachers and bad teachers. It's across the board. In any profession, you're going to have good or bad. And it's sad that we are so marching in the street for these things when people like myself and it's other African American people are living on the streets right now. People like myself, that have gone through unbelievable pain and trauma, sometimes at the hand of our own people. I can tell you some stuff, and I'm trying to keep this video very PC. I can tell you some things that I've been through, and it wasn't a white face that was oppressing me at that time. I've been through racism. I've been through discrimination. But it wasn't 100% of my life that it was racism and discrimination. Sometimes it was my own people. So anyway, I'm going to let that be that for this video. Tune in till next time. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Go get any of my books on Amazon. www.amazon.com/author/Latanya's Epiphany. I have merch on Teespring, The Red Republic, Miss Sidewalk Rose, MS-Sidewalk-Rose. So go check it out. I also have courses on Udemy, but everything should be in the link, in the description rather. The link should be, excuse me. I don't know what's going on there. The link should be in the description. And my closing message to you is have faith in God. Seek the Lord. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. You don't have to loot and steal for it. You don't have to riot for it. You can pray and trust God and believe. You can read, hold on, let me get this right here. You can read this Bible right here. You can read this Bible. This Bible is your friend. Get in the Word of God. Get in the Word of God. Pray. Start in the book of John. That's a good place to go. The book of John. Go in there and study to show yourself approved and see what God won't do in your life. God bless you. Love you guys. Peace.